Okay, that one seems to be working. Hey everyone, Tim Silverwood here, and as promised, I'm going to be doing a bit of a live chat about my transition. For those of you not aware, um, just a week ago we announced that I will be handing over the reins of Take Three for the Sea to a new CEO, Sarah Beard. This is something that's been in the works for quite some time now, and I will be starting, or have started, a new organisation called Ocean Impact Organisation. So, probably a bit of a surprise for a lot of people out there, but not a surprise for me. I've been thinking about this transition for a couple of years now, and I think it's time. So, the purpose is just to spend a little bit of time chatting with you, my very respected community of supporters and ocean advocates, and gauging what you think about this move. It's been 10 years at Take Three for the Sea, so certainly felt like this year, 2020, I turned 40 in July. So having spent 10 years at Take Three for the Sea and so proud of what it's achieved, I certainly was thinking, what next? And it's taken me a couple of years to actually identify that what next would be this new venture, which is really driven by this notion of business as unusual, and really looking at how the business community, particularly those in startups and innovation, the real change makers out there, can be supported. Because in many ways I feel like in the last 10 years I've seen that we've won so many of the hearts and minds of people. People get that there's these huge problems out there now facing our planet, facing our oceans, and we just haven't seen the solutions, the scalable solutions appear. It feels like we're all there calling out and crying out for these different ways of doing things, but they just haven't existed. So I feel like maybe the time has come to really, for me anyway, shift my focus across to look at the role of business to really create the future that we want to see in the world. So for those of you who have had a bit of a deep dive into oceanimpact.org, do so now if you haven't. That's the handle, and the website is ocean-impact.org. And you'll see very quickly that we lead with these sort of comments around, for example, our mission to create an abundant and sustainable ocean through inspiration, innovation, leadership, and good business. And then this sort of tagline, this thing we're really identifying as what we're here to do, is to help people start, grow, and invest in businesses that positively impact the ocean. So they're sort of, I guess, the main themes that I thought we could start talking about today. So anyone got any questions? I would love to answer questions live. I've got a few down here that I can refer to that people submitted prior. Thanks, Simon. Simon from Plant Proof, incredible communicator and podcaster, saying we might need to come back in and do another podcast to talk about this new shift in direction. Yeah, mate, I'd be absolutely keen to do that. In many ways I've been championing the idea of civil society and people out there everywhere, anywhere, doing small actions to help the oceans and to make an impact. And that is still absolutely true to form for me. I do believe in the in many small actions multiply, make a huge difference. But I believe it most of all because that then helps to create a huge groundswell, a movement of people who are demanding a different way of doing things. So what we need now is obviously all those solutions that can make a big change. Someone's just chimed in and talked about seaweed farming. So many of those out there may have seen in Australia the 2040 documentary, and that does have a big feature on seaweed farming. So I think seaweed farming has massive opportunities within the Ocean Impact Organisation remit, not just looking at different types of food substitutes, so getting away from maybe some of the traditional types of seafood farming and harvesting, and looking at how we can incorporate seaweed into our diet, but also how rapidly seaweed grows and therefore how it can be used to sequester carbon from the oceans and from our atmosphere. So seaweed farming, large scale seaweed permaculture, definitely huge. I know there's some people out there who have incredible insights into how seaweed can be supplemented as part of the feedstock for beef farming and can reduce methane emissions by incredible amounts too. So there's all sorts of ways that seaweed can certainly be incorporated into scalable business ventures that can really make a big impact. Seafood for carbon. So I know when I was sort of asking those questions out there to people, all sorts of feedback coming in this early stage. I guess a lot of people out there would look around and say, okay, well, what are some of those examples of businesses that can have this huge positive impact on the ocean? I'd point to projects like the Seabin project. That's a very scalable commercial product that we have billions of bins around the world that are to allow people to dispose of their waste thoughtfully, but we don't ever think about having bins in the ocean. So Pete Ziglinski and the team at Seabin have just gone and done a public fundraise to actually scale their business. So that's a really good example. I think back to some of those ones that really burst onto the scene in the earlier days of the plastic pollution conversation, and it was like Uhu water, like the little seaweed pockets of fluid that you can just pop in your mouth and use that as a substitute for requiring plastic. So imagine the incredible opportunities out there for different types of packaging that aren't causing the negative impacts that plastic have. There was Lollyware, the wonderful team who came out with a straw that was once again made out of a very sweet, I think, seaweed derived material, so you could actually eat it afterwards. But I really want to emphasize that, good ideas are out there, and they're really, really fantastic for inspiring awareness around this. But really, I think where Ocean Impact Organisation is going to have the greatest impact is on those large scalable ventures. So how can we look at like energy, for example? And currently here in Australia, many places around the world, we still rely upon carbon as our major source of energy. So we know that we're shifting towards renewables. What about the oceans as a source of abundant energy? Looking at transportation, pretty much everything we interact with in our lives at the moment has been moved around our planet on ships, and so those ships have a huge environmental footprint through the efficiency of their methodologies of getting around, through to the practices that they engage in. I've seen all sorts of innovations in the way you can actually deal with the biofouling of marine vessels, which has increased efficiency. Supplements to the type of fuel that we could use could have a huge impact on reducing our carbon emissions and improving the way we treat our oceans. Fisheries and agriculture, a really important part of the conversation we've been, I guess, struggling to communicate a little bit is that yes, we're about ocean impact, but we have to remember that as a species, so much of what we do on land has that direct impact on our ocean. So even though it might not appear that the business or the idea directly touches the ocean, it does have a downstream impact. So agriculture could be absolutely massive when you think about the runoff of fertilizers and pesticides, and just small improvements to the way we do agriculture could actually have a huge impact on waterways and the ocean. Someone's raised an issue there around synthetic fabrics. Absolutely. The most common type of plastic material being found in scientific analysis of our oceans is those microfibers as well as other micro and nanoparticles from tyre dust and from other sources. So anyway, once again, the innovation can try and limit the amount of fibres being released. It could be a new type of textile material, or it could be even better ways of filtration and stopping the pollution from leaving people's homes. Just going to have a little look through some of these questions here. Charlene Bailey says, what do you think is a current gap in our innovation towards saving our oceans? I think probably I'd say the main gap, and the one that really inspires me the most, is how critical it is that we look at our own existence and our own collective lives on what we call planet Earth. We really need to start thinking about it as planet Ocean. It's so easy to disregard the impacts that we have on the ocean because they're so vast and seemingly so endless that for hundreds and thousands of years, we've just used our waterways and our oceans as that means to make our stuff that we don't want anymore go away. And conversely, we feel like they're just an abundant source of anything we want to take. And so for me, the inspiration piece of our business model is really important. That's probably why my role is so critical in the organisation, is to inspire people that we live on planet Ocean, and we need to start looking at our future through the eyes of the ocean, because even the latest impacts, for example, in Australia, of the drought and of these extreme bushfires, it's very easy to start looking at the macro level on how changes to ocean behaviour actually drives that. So we need to start looking at the ocean in everything that we do. Important to note out, guys, as well, that I am one co-founder of two, so you haven't really had a lot of time to meet my fantastic new co-founder yet. His name's Nick Chiarelli, and Nick and I have been collaborating on this idea, which is his idea, for about a year and a half. And so we're pretty thrilled to finally have a brand and something live that you guys can actually look at and touch. So looking through any other questions, Billy Otto chimed in that one thing we're going to be doing to help with the inspiration piece is doing a podcast. So we've been talking with Billy Otto about an epic song that he has called Can't Take the Ocean Out of Me. So we're going to nail that one for the theme tune for the podcast. Good to hear from you, Billy. Okay, synthetic fabrics, just looking at any other questions that might have come through so far. So I was back to sort of some of the other people's comments in the lead up to this chat today. Dan from Project Yes And was talking about how maybe I've got a current business. Is there a way I could start to embed the ocean into an existing business to therefore meet this criteria of ocean impact? And I do think that's a huge opportunity. One thing I sort of would say on that is that a lot of my experiences lately have seen that greenwashing and blue washing is rife, particularly in big business, where there's an opportunity now that's emerging because there's a lot of attention on the ocean, attention on climate, that businesses will try and run some campaigns or some projects or some product lines that talk very clearly to, oh, look at what we're doing to save the ocean. But it's really important that impact piece is so well ingrained in the business and so articulated. And so one of the reasons why focusing on startups and accelerating businesses that have absolutely built into their DNA this impact piece, because it's really hard to retrofit a big business. It's much easier to create a business that is driven by purpose and impact to begin with, and then give that all the tools to scale and to grow. So that's my dog. So that's why I think, and these businesses are going to be the great sort of disruptors. When you think about it, the future is not going to look like it looks like in 2020. So what we need to do is find those technologies, innovations, the right leaders, those incredible visionary founders, and we need to give them all the tools give them all the tools to make sure their business is as successful as it can possibly be as quickly as possible, because we just don't have time. Conversely, if that's not the right idea and it's not the right time, then give them all the tools that they need to fail now, and then they can, tie up their bootlaces and get back out there and try something new. So really important that it's both about rapid success but also rapid failure. And of course, we're a startup too. Ocean Impact Organisation is a brand new startup. Okay, anyone got any other questions for me? Cam Saves the World says he loves that idea of calling it Planet Ocean. Yeah, there's some words that we really have come out of our mapping and all our vision pieces, Nick and I, that just have resounded so clearly and so strongly from the get-go, and definitely Planet Ocean was one. The mission statement, what we do. So there's 5 broad themes. I'm just seeing if there's any new fresh questions. Okay, Claudia. Okay, in what ways are people going to be able to get involved? So it's very different, obviously, to Take 3 for the Sea, which was incredible in the sense that you could just say, hey, we're Take 3 for the Sea. Anyone, anywhere can get involved by simply going and doing that small action. So this one, we're really encouraging people now to obviously join up. So follow us on socials, go to our website, and sign up to the email newsletter. If you are someone who's already a founder, if you've got an idea, or maybe you're someone who works in these marine industries or in any sector that you think could help these founders, then you can sign up to become a mentor. And of course, we're really interested in this early stage of talking to people who may have the capacity to donate. As a non-profit organisation, we do need that support in the get-go to get established. Also looking at how people can get on board to become sort of commercial partners and commercial sponsors. But we will be running our first Startup Acceleration. Generally will focus on a cohort, so we'll be at some point in the next 12 months announcing to the world that we are accepting applications for our first cohort. And this is where all those people that we've been building up in our early ecosystem will be applying and saying, hey, we think our idea is one that can really, really scale and make a huge impact if we could get into your accelerator program and be supported. And so stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, I think we're going to do lots and lots of this, what we're calling ecosystem building. This idea of Ocean Impact Organisation revolves in bringing together all those people that are currently working in these sectors and industries and all around together into what we're calling this ecosystem. So you're a part of that ecosystem. You're a part of this crowd of people that are passionate about it. Maybe some of those of you out there thinking to yourself, gee, maybe that's where I'm going to be exerting my influence on the world is starting a business, and or maybe you're not the kind of founder. Maybe you're someone who can just be a fantastic support network. We hope that we'll be able to run events like hackathons where bring people together who are passionate about making change and let them hack out on what those ideas might be. So definitely just go and sign up and stay tuned for now, and you'll be able to follow the journey. All right, just checking out other questions I've got here. I love that Ash Powell, an old friend of mine from school, said when reading our mission statement, which is to create an abundant and sustainable ocean through innovation, inspiration, leadership and good business. Like, well, it's actually recreating an abundant and sustainable ocean. I like that comment from you, Ash, because you're right. It wasn't until we came along and really muddled up those natural processes in our oceans and took more than we should and went to where maybe we should have never gone that the ocean started to decline. So we are trying to recreate that sustainable and abundant ocean. All right, any other questions? Send those questions our way, guys. So yeah, Take 3, I'm excited to see where Take 3 heads now with a new CEO in Sarah Beard. I think she's a absolutely perfect. For those of you who aren't familiar or haven't read the media releases, she's had a long history with Take 3 for the Sea. She's been involved in the organisation since 2014. She served on the board. She ran our Surf Life Saving Clubs project for a long time. And most notably, she spent the last 5 years as one of the producers and the impact producer of the documentary Blue. So hopefully many of you out there have seen Blue and are big fans, because that documentary in so many ways has been a game changer in people's understanding of what we're doing to our oceans and the critical need to turn around that practice. So I love that the big theme that they focus on in Blue is ocean change. We're quite happy to refer to the state of our planet and reference climate change, because the climate has been disrupted and it's making life more and more challenging for us and many other species. But the ocean change is, quite clearly the leading contributor towards the climate change. It all stems back to our overuse of extracting carbon and burning it for the sake of energy and transportation. But those effects are being felt really, really badly in the ocean, and they will take a long time to reveal themselves. So we need to get on the front foot with this stuff now and change the game. In many ways, I wouldn't have been even taking this path were it not for how far we've come in the conversation at community level, at corporation level, and of course at the government level. Around the world, we are seeing the strongest evidence that we need to change our ways, and that's being translated in many different ways. Of course, I'm not naive to suggest that it's impacted every corner of the world, but it's certainly on its way now. And once again, back to where Ocean Impact Organisation finds itself, it's saying, okay, the conversation's been won, the hearts and minds have been won, where are the solutions? How can we get new technologies that are going to disrupt the status quo? How can we get them elevated, celebrated, and amplified as quickly as possible? So in terms of our sort of 5-year goals with Ocean Impact Organisation, there's two major ones that we talk about. We would love to accelerate 100 businesses in 5 years. So that's going to take quite a bit of work. So potentially each of these startup cohorts that we might run could have 6, could have 10 different projects in them at any one time. We'll be running multiple cohorts every year as things kick off. And so 100 businesses. Now, of course, not all of those are going to succeed. The idea is that you push these businesses and ideas as quickly as possible. So those that do succeed, do so fast. Those that fail, do so fast. So 100 businesses in 5 years is a pretty impressive number. But the big measure of our success will be in how much money has been diverted from traditional status quo investment into impact investment. And this is, I think, a really important part of the conversation that the deep environmental community really need to focus on, because me included, I've always had a strange relationship with money, and particularly with the big businesses and extreme side of wealth, and that it always felt to me like behind all of that was negative impacts on people on the planet. I'm sure maybe you feel the same way. There's not that many examples of where big business or big human family wealth can't really be traced back to, that money that was made has actually been doing regenerative and restorative beneficial work to people on the planet. So unless we change that paradigm, then I don't think that we've actually really been successful. So our second major 5-year goal is to shift $100 million in investment into ocean impact projects. And now we are really getting to the nitty gritty, because we can't sit in this current paradigm of the environmentalists. This is massive generalization, but sitting on the left and being like, stop doing what you're doing, change your ways, holding up the placards and saying no, 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 whilst over there, business as usual, which is, we live in a capitalistic society. These big businesses are going to be there for a long time. If they're not going to be how they currently are, they're going to be changing by a couple of degrees, but they're always going to be there. What is it going to take to actually enable big business and big wealth to generate that wealth by doing good to the planet? And I'm sure there's a couple of examples out there we could talk about. Patagonia as a family-owned company, I think we're a pretty remarkable leader in establishing a business that the profits that business generated would be directly reinvested back into conservation. Obviously, the great disruptors out there like Elon Musk and Tesla, and really trying to transform the way we look at energy from burning fossil fuels to using renewable resources. There's probably many, many more, so feel free to chime in with some commentary there. But yeah, I do think that's going to be my biggest learning through this adventure, is going to be how I go into that world of big business, of big money, and try and shift the dial a few degrees so that we actually see a change in the status quo. We need business as unusual, not business as usual. So as I was saying before, a big part of this journey for me is going to be opening myself up to conversations like these. Going to be recording a podcast as well, and just talking about what it's like to go through a transition like this, and to wear my sort of status on my sleeve and say, look, I'm the deep green environmentalist who cares deeply about the oceans, and I'm now stepping into a new world to go on a journey of discovery. So I'm hoping that those of you out there in my community can join me on this journey of discovery through social media, through live events, through the podcast when it comes out, and so on and so forth. So we've had a chat for almost half an hour, so I think it mightn't be a bad idea to leave it there. Not bad for episode 1 of Transition Talk. What would make my life a lot easier with this is if people do just want to submit those questions in advance or as we're going live, and that way we can just have a very natural conversation. But I'm going to say for now, thank you again so much. Thank you for all the support that you've shown me over the years through building Take 3 for the Sea, and for pushing the cause of plastic pollution and waste-free living, and all that's required to create a positive impact there. And hopefully you'll enjoy the time in following my next adventures with Ocean Impact Organisation. So once again, check out Ocean Impact Org on socials to get familiarised and follow, and ocean-impact.org is the website. So thanks again everyone, and enjoy the rest of your